I've been trying to reach out to God lately, and it wasn't until just recently that while doing my homework that He spoke to me. And so I don't do much of self-recording and posting, but I really found this to be very important. So, thanks to my teachers who challenged me to think critically and making me read C.S. Lewis. I've been just meditating on God. I was meditating on God's words this afternoon, and I'm just wondering, hey God, I want more of you. I want you to manifest yourself in my life. And not long ago, like the Tuesday of this week, I saw a lot, like two pastors, I believe, went live, and they were just answering questions. They were answering people's questions, and they were answering the daily things they did. Like they were like, oh yeah, I wake up and I usually just read so much of the Bible sometimes, not even just a chapter or two, but almost sometimes a whole book. And I pray in tongues, and I just sometimes feel the Holy Spirit talking to me. They would say I just feel His presence, like just edifying my spirit. And I just would look at that, and just while watching that, I'd be like, God, what's up? I want a relationship like that with you. I want to be feeling your presence every 5 seconds. Like, I want you to manifest your spirit in me. I want you to make me pray in tongues. I want you to do these things with me. Like, I want to have more of you. And the thing is, and so I just been kind of meditating on that. Like, how do I get more of you, God? That's what I want. And so and you have to realize sometimes, like, just because sometimes you don't do these things don't mean you don't have a relationship with God, because you do, and I believe you do. And so, especially if you seek Him, you will find Him, and the Bible does say so. But on this homework I had of C.S. Lewis, one of the questions I had to answer was, how does personal character hinder us to the knowledge of God? And I was just thinking about it, so I went to the page where I should find the answer, and I was like, yeah, personal character, which I'm thinking should be humility and the patience and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm thinking, alright, so that has to do with Moses in the Bible. When Moses in the Bible, bro, had such a, he went and met God. Let's be honest. He legit, the part in the Bible when he stood between the two stones and just spoke with God, and God revealed Himself to Moses and showed His back to Moses, and I just find that really incredible. That's one of the closest thing that anybody has ever seen from God up close, and I'm like, bro, that's amazing. And so I just continue to think, but I'm like, bro, I often sit there and I try to call out to God, and I think sometimes we all do this. Sometimes we be like, all right, God, you tell us that if I call out to you, you will answer us, and our problems will disappear. And so we all try this, and we're like, why isn't bright light coming from the sky and just throwing away all my problems? And and to be honest, yes, doing that in faith, God sees that, and He does sees your heart. But then reading this part, it shows that sometimes, often, it's a relationship. So God is not our slave. It's a relationship. He doesn't just answer your every call, just because you asked. It's a relationship, and sometimes we have to make the effort to know what God feels in this situation, or what God is trying to say to us, so that it works as a relationship. We don't just stand there when we're not seeking Him, but when we're in the deepest of issues, we're like, oh God, yeah. But when we're supposed to seek Him, we're not doing what we're supposed to do. And so I read, as I was looking for this, I was reading this part when it says, hey, C.S. Lewis, New Christianity, in this paragraph I found, it said, when you come to knowing God, the initiative lies on His side. So which means that when you kind of want to get to know more of God, He gets to decide how much He reveals to you. Yes, your faith trying to know Him, He will do that, but He decides how He show Himself to you. And so He said, if He does not show Himself, C.S. Lewis states, if he does not show himself, nothing you can do will enable you to find him. And in fact, he shows much more of himself to some people than to others. Not because he has favorites, but because it is impossible for God to show himself to a man whose whole mind and character are in the wrong condition. Just as light, though it has no favorites, cannot be reflected in a dusty mirror as clearly as in a clean one. And so I'm like, oh, so it's a character thing sometimes that makes God want to show himself to us. And God knows your situation. God, like, even in the Bible it states, like, the light given to you, God will reward you according to the light that has been given to you in your life and how much you are aware of certain things around you. And sometimes it isn't until God, like, reveals certain things to you, shines some light in your life, that you see the darkness in the corner, and you become more aware, and you just become more aware of your surroundings and the good, and you become to be able to discern things, the right and wrong in your life, and what you should be doing instead, and seeking more of his light. And so I was just reading this, and I was like, okay, and I'm like thinking, so why haven't you, like, that much reveal yourself to me? I've been seeking you, I've been calling out to you, especially to this time of quarantine. There's nothing else much to do. And so, and I thought, and I was like, I'm like thinking, I was like, yeah, like, when we call out to God, he should show up, right? He showed up to Moses. But the thing is, and I was like, wait, is that always true? And then I realized the initiative does lie on this side. And I was thinking about having a moral character, like a good moral character. And I was thinking, I was like, wait a minute. Paul didn't have a good moral character when God showed up to him. Like, Paul was legit persecuting God's people. Like, he was legit just hurting them and killing God's people. He wasn't like, uprighteous and moral character. He was killing God's people. But, due to his alone time, I would imagine that God would just show up and slide tackle Paul and say, hey, stop hurting my people. But that's not what happened. God, in fact, showed up to Paul, but he spoke to Paul even almost in a kind manner. Like, he asked Paul, why are you hurting my people? And Paul was like, what? Like, and then, until he eventually blinds Paul. And, sometimes God has to, show his power to you so that you can know his reality. So that happened, but I was like, man, Paul wasn't that much like uprighteous character, and God decided to show himself to him. But then I realized, then I get to the relationship part. Yes, it is on God's initiative that he does show himself to us, but just like the part I just read, sometimes it's a relationship, and both sides have to just, like, be on good terms. What I'm trying to say is, often we're like, yeah, God, I want more of you. I want more of you. And God is like, yeah, I know, I see that. But guess what? You can't have all of me if you're cheating on me with sin. If when you're supposed to, spend time with me and pray to me in times of alone, you go do whatever. You choose to do what you want to do. And it can't work that way. You can't have both sin and God. If you want more of God, you're going to have to get rid of some of that sin in your life. And that's when God would just decide, like, that's where the relationship part is. Both sides get to decide certain things. God loves you, and so he's like, all right, fine. If you want to go do your sinful deeds, go right ahead. But I'm telling you, you can't have both. So, and God says, if you want to get closer to me, you might want to get rid of some of that in your life. You might want to start listening to me more. You might want to get rid of that egotistical way of thinking of yours, in which I am, very guilty of sometimes. And God, confessing our sins to him, God is willing, and just like, he loves us and he knows, like, what's going on. So he's very willing to just come back to us and help us find our way to him. But the funny thing is, I would say for me, oftentimes in my relationship with God, and I would say, is this very egotistical view sometimes, and it's not saying of the egotistical thing. It's just, for example, a friend of mine, I'm gonna call you out, Jeshawn, he shared this, like, kind of testimony of this guy he knew at his church, And this guitar guy was very spiritual. In fact, he was very spiritual. He spoke in tongues and he prophesied over so many people. Like he was just balling in the Holy Spirit. But then somehow he fell away. He fell away, and started doing drugs or whatever the case may be. And my friend Josh mentioned it was probably because of that ego in him that was just growing. And I just think, man, how can anyone fall from having that much revelation in God? You had so much so much of your own presence dwelling in the presence of God, that like, how could anything else take you away from that? How could you fall away? How is that even possible? And then I started realizing how sin sometimes act like weeds in a garden. You don't see them there when they start growing. You're not aware of them. But before it's too late, they're already taken root. It's not until they're so visible and obvious that you can finally take them out. It's not until you step out in your garden you realize, oh my goodness, there's like legit weeds growing around my plant. And the thing is, it be like that because sometimes God plants that goodness in us for us to grow, and we try to mature it. But the thing is, if we have these sinful weeds in our life that are legit sucking the goodness out of us, that's basically what's going on. He had this thing of just like it was sucking the goodness out of him. And it's like, and it's not until it's too late sometimes that these sinful roots take place in our hearts, that we don't even realize before it's too late how bad it has already taken like over us. And so I just want to like explore on that. I'm just like, hey, this is why God tells us to give all of ourselves over to Him, because if we don't do that, the devil's gonna see our weaknesses and take advantage. He will pull out his list and say, which sinful seed should I place on this guy? And your weaknesses are like holes to him. It's like, oh, so I can place this in you and place that in you, and before it's too late, he's already planted the seeds, and you don't notice them, you don't see them, and you're just like, yeah. But only God can see it. So you need to listen to God. When God is telling you, hey, this is wrong with you, you probably need to stop and be like, oh, God, like, okay, please help me find a way back to you. Please take these things out of me. And many of you in these time of quarantine right now, it must feel like that. Maybe you're seeking after God, but you just feel like you've reached a dead end, and you're just like, all right, what should I do for God to like speak to me more? And sometimes He's already telling you one, and He's already telling you the way you should go, and you're like, no, absolutely not. And it's like, and God is like, well, there's only one way, and He's telling you it right now. And it's not that He doesn't want to reveal Himself to you. It's just God will choose to say no to you, especially if you're dwelling in sin. He's not gonna abide next to that. Like God is like, absolutely not. You want all of me, you get all of me, but you gotta take that away. And so that happens, and so it often be like that. So I lost space and had to come back to this later. But what I wanted to continue saying is like, it reminds me of Peter, which, this came to me because as I was invited to a Zoom call from my friend Ketney, to like a life group of her church, and they were talking about Peter. And one of the things they mentioned, like the main topic, was that how when Jesus told Peter that you will deny me 3 times, and the evidence of that would be that the crow crows 3 times, or the bird or so will do that. And it did happen. When that time came and they asked, hey, do you know Jesus? Oh, you're the guy with Jesus. Everybody kept mentioning that. And you're like, you're the guy I saw with Jesus. And he said, no, I'm not. Like, but then when Jesus told Peter that, he was like, no, I would never deny you, God. I would never. And the point I wanted to mention with this is just like, when we rely on our own strength, we don't get very far. And if Jesus is trying to tell us something, we probably should listen to Him. And it's not like a roast. It's not saying like this. It's just for your own sake, so that maybe you would just look to Him and be like, hey, God, if you're saying that, how do I avoid that? How do I look to you, God? How do I let you lead in my heart to not do something like that? Like, what do I do, God, so that I don't end up in that situation? And so, I just want to encourage you that, whatever situation in your life, or, whenever you're looking for God, that if ever God just tells you to do something, it's not to like belittle you. It's never to do that, but just to warn you to look to Him. And I just want to encourage you that whatever situation that you do in your life, or whatever you're coming up against, give yourself to Christ. Give yourself to God so that He may justify you, so that He may make you better, so that in His weaknesses you can be strong. That in your weaknesses, that you can be a lot stronger. And so I just pray that we just look to God in whatever situation that we may be in, and then we can continue to grow our relationship stronger with you, God, to look further to you, God, and just have greater revelation in you, God. And so I pray that, God, in whatever situation that we may be in, God, in whatever like little sins or little roots that the devil may try to plant in our life, God, that you would just cut them before the effects just take over, before we can even notice it, God. And I just pray that we just continue to seek you. I want to call down on the Holy Spirit, God, that He would just continue to manifest a thirst and hunger in our life for you, God, so that we may live by your word constantly, so that we may talk to you constantly, that we may call to you constantly in every situation, because you abide in every situation. You have to do with everything. Nothing in this world just has nothing to do with you. Everything in this world has everything to do with you. And I just want to pray that, God, we just put you first in order to get by, because when we are weak, God, that's where you are strong. So let us to rely on you in whatever the situation may be, because in that way, bro, as we rely on you, God, we'll be made right in you, God, and we can just look to you and receive so much more from you, God. And I just pray that over our lives, God, as we continue to seek you and just be made better in you, God. And I just thank you for that in your spirit, God. And so I thank you guys, and just hope you guys had a good Friday. Thank you.